You can have a real short memory if you always tell the truth. I'm going to talk a little more about transparency today. My name's Jeff Bajorek, and my career in sales has been a hell of a ride. And I want to bring you along with me. If you prefer to sell things at a premium, if you never want to win a deal on price, rethink the way you sell. Welcome back to the show. My name's Jeff Bajorek. I'm your host, and I'm here to help you rethink the way you sell. You can have a real short memory if you always tell the truth. That is paraphrasing Mark Twain. I just looked it up. I originally heard that on Colin Cowherd's radio show probably 14, 15 years ago. I used to listen to him a lot when I was driving around in my car making sales calls. I don't miss putting 33,000 miles a year on my car, but I did get to enrich myself a little bit. So I think that's what you're doing now. You're probably listening while you're driving in your car. Maybe you're out for a walk. Maybe you're in the office trying to decide whether or not to pay attention to me or whatever it is you're working on right now. But regardless, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you spending some time with me today. I want to rehash transparency again. My very good friend, Todd Caponi, and I talked about this last week. We talked a little bit about it with regard to the sales process. Today, I want to really spin it more toward leadership. And Todd's most recent award-winning best-selling book, The Transparent Sales Leader, is one you should be reading if you haven't read it already. Maybe even read it again. But I love the way transparency overlaps with three main concepts that I want to talk about today that are vital in any team environment, but especially if you are a leader. And the first one is truth. You ever notice that despite the fact that it can be difficult to tell the truth sometimes, because look, not everybody wants to hear the truth, even though it's what they always need to hear. You don't always want it, right? It's a little bit of tension when you have to get to that thing that you don't really want to get to. But as soon as everybody's on the same page, everybody feels better, right? And I don't mean that everybody's on the same page with a lie, because then you're never really on the same page. Just because you believed a lie doesn't mean that you're on the right page, right? But when you can collectively tell the truth, when you have visibility into what's actually going on, everybody's collective blood pressure goes down just a little bit, and you can actually get the work done. You're not distracted by the resistance and the friction of your thoughts of second, third, fourth guessing whether or not what's being talked about is actually what's going on, right? You can rely on the truth. And if everybody agrees with the truth, which is less and less common anymore, it seems, when everybody can agree on the truth, you can really move forward. So I want to encourage you to be willing to have those radically candid conversations. Radical Candor is a best-selling book. Kim Scott wrote that several years ago. It was great. I recommend that you read it, particularly as a leader, because it's important to run your team. It's important to lead your team with transparency. The best practices that are out there, they only work in the presence of the truth. And the more you stack false truths and half-truths and mistruths and lies on top of one another, the harder it is to get any work done. That goes back to where I started the show at the top. If you always tell the truth, you can have a really short memory. But the more little white lies you tell, whether you're trying to convince yourself or someone else, the longer of a memory you have to have, because the more things you need to keep track of. Oh, that's right. I know I said we were going to do this thing, but now I got to remember this other thing and then excuse upon excuse. Look, I don't need to continue this. You know where I'm going with this. So my first request, I'm begging you as leaders, as salespeople, to tell the truth. If that deal's not going to close by the end of the quarter, you owe it to your manager to tell them. If there is a new product coming down the pike and you know that it's not going to be available in time for your reps to go and sell it, as the leader, you need to tell them. And part of the job of the leader is to be this insulation, right? You've got to keep the stuff from the field from getting all the way back up to executive leadership. And you got to keep a lot of executive leadership's complaints away from your team when you know they're going to be distracting, right? So I know it's tough as a leader, but You owe it to yourself, you owe it to everybody in the organization to tell the truth every single time. And what happens when you always tell the truth? Well, your team knows what to expect from you. Right? Your colleagues know what to expect from you. They can trust you. And without trust, we don't have anything. And trust is founded on the truth. Trust is founded on consistency. Trust is founded on believing that whoever is telling you what they're telling you is doing so with good intentions and is doing so to help everybody, right? So tell the truth. Now, truth is important as it relates to accountability. Now, you've heard me talk about accountability before. In an organization, this is one of the primary 3 agreements that every organization needs to have. Otherwise, it is leaving its best work on the table. You have to agree to what your sales process is. You have to agree that you will each have your own methodologies to accomplish the end of that process. And you also have to agree that you're going to hold each other accountable that the methods you're employing are going to accomplish the result you're looking for. That accountability is where most organizations fall way short, and it's the reason that the majority of organizations don't hit their numbers. But again, what does accountability mean? It means I'm supporting you. It means I am doing whatever you need me to do to help you. But in order for you to ask for the right help, we got to talk about the truth. We got to tell the truth to one another. We need to know what we're collectively struggling with, and we need to know collectively what we're working toward. If we don't know those things, or if we're telling lies about those things, if we are not transparent about those things, then how the hell are we ever going to get any work done? So what does it mean to sell like you? Well, in short, it means more pipeline. It means bigger deals that close faster and more often. It means more customer loyalty, so there's less churn. And it means a culture on your team where winning is expected and everyone's having fun. Now, if this sounds like something your team needs, go to jeffbajorek.com/services and find out how I use this approach to help teams like yours create world-class results. Now, back to the show. The truth and transparency are necessary to have real accountability in your organization. And if you haven't heard me talk or write about accountability in the past, and if you are scared right now or turned off a little bit right now that I'm talking about the importance, the necessity of accountability on a team, whether you're a leader holding your team accountable, whether you are just a frontline seller, I say just, right? A frontline seller who needs to hold their leader accountable, this is not about micromanagement. Accountability and micromanagement are complete opposites. They get confused for each other, which is comical because as soon as you dig in, you realize what they are and what they aren't. Micromanagement is a complete lack of trust. There's no room for micromanagement on an effective team, but accountability is necessary in an effective team because that accountability means support. That accountability means belief. That accountability means I trust you to do what you said you were going to do to help this team. And we agreed upon these things that needed to happen in order for us to do our very best work. And I know that you can deliver your part. So if you're not, how can I help? That's what accountability means. And, self-accountability, I hear a lot of reps say, no, I'll hold myself accountable. No such thing. That's an oxymoron. Self-accountability is discipline. And you know that discipline, as good and as disciplined as you are, as good at disciplining yourself as you are, there's still room for more improvement if you know that someone is out there looking after you, making sure that you have what you need in order to do your very best work and willing to provide those resources to the best of their ability whenever you fall short. That's what teams are about. And if you don't have that on your team is not performing very well right now, regardless of what the numbers say. Because when everybody comes together like that, which is what you should be shooting for, when everybody comes together like that, that's what a high-performance culture looks like. That's what a sales team that knows no boundaries, knows no limits. They know boundaries. In order to really have unlimited potential, you have to have strong boundaries. But that's another podcast for another time. But that support is exactly what's required for you to do your very best work. It starts with transparency. telling the truth. And when everybody's telling the truth, you can hold each other accountable to the goals that the truth enables. The other part of accountability, effective accountability, is vulnerability. And Todd and I talked a little bit about this. We touched on it last week. But you have to be vulnerable enough to ask for the help that you need. You need to be vulnerable enough to recognize the limits of the help you can give someone else without getting a third person or party or tool or software or whatever involved. But the thing that makes accountability work is the trust, again, that comes back, always comes back to trust, but the trust that comes along with the vulnerability that you're willing to show. You have to recognize your limitations. You have to let people know when you are falling short of what you thought you could do. Sometimes you have to raise your hand and say, look, I overcommitted. Sometimes you have to bring a deal to your team to help you with that where hey, maybe you're not getting some of these things right. But the thing about doing your best work in a sales capacity, especially when it comes to selling like you, is about being willing to try stuff that might not work. This is important to me. I'm going to do the very best I can. This is the way I think it needs to be done, but it's not a guarantee. Can I have you look at this? Can I have a couple of sets of eyes on this? Can I run this by you and tell me what you think? If everybody comes in with a complete lack of vulnerability, if everybody believes they know it all, then no one's curious, no one's learning, no one's improving. That is highly problematic. And when you are willing to be transparent enough to show people where your flaws are, to show people where you might be falling short, to show people where you are willing to improve, that is when people get better. So I'm relating transparency to doing your best work. And this is something that a lot of people are just too afraid to get into. They're too afraid to be transparent. Oh my gosh, what if they see me for who I really am? Well, that doesn't show any trust. That's not telling the truth. How are we supposed to hold you accountable to a figment of your imagination? That's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to you because it's an unlivable standard. It's not fair to the team because you've probably overcommitted as a result of this unlivable standard. And we're just going to hope that at the end of the quarter, the end of the year, enough people fall short of their goals to where it all just gets swept under the rug and maybe we'll try again next year. Come on. You're better than that. You're capable of more. So in order to be vulnerable, in order to be held accountable, in order to hold others accountable, in order to tell the truth, you have to be willing to be transparent. You have to be willing to talk about what's really happening. You have to be willing not to veil what's really going on. If you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to tell the truth, anything is possible. And that is a big fear that you need to get over. So I want you to, I highly recommend going back and reading both Todd's books. If you're not going to buy the book, look, buy the book. It's worth the investment. But even if you're not going to, just listen to him on podcasts talking about transparency, talking about how much easier it becomes to sell when you're transparent because our buyers like being able to predict what's going to happen next, right? From a customer relationship standpoint, transparency is huge. Today, I talked about how valuable it is on your team for everybody to be transparent. But this is a profound concept, and he's got the market cornered on him. And I'm really proud of the work that he's done, and he should be proud of the work that he's done. So go check out more of that. And look, if you've got questions, if you've got issues, if you believe what I'm saying, but just don't know how to implement it, right? If you're leading a team of 10 people right now and you are thinking about, wow, how do I get everybody on the same page? And this truth thing sounds interesting, sounds intriguing, but wow, what can I share and what can't I? Go to my website, book 25 minutes, let's talk. We'll keep it confidential. It's a complimentary call. I want to learn about the struggles you're facing right now, and I want to give you some insights to help you. Maybe there's an opportunity for us to work together and I can help you implement this. Maybe there isn't. It doesn't matter. It's important to me. I do this podcast so I can get these concepts out to you. Hopefully, I make a strong enough case for you to think about implementing them. And if you just need to chat with me for a few minutes to get you over the hump, then that's what I'm here to do. Put enough out there and enough comes back around. So, hoping to hear from you, and let's get your organization moving in the right direction. So, really excited. Next week, I got another conversation. We're going to talk a little bit about practice with my friend Jordana Zeldin. What she is doing with the Practice Lab is tremendous. You are going to love that conversation because she is just an absolutely intoxicating podcast guest and conversation partner. She's wonderful. So, can't wait to bring you that conversation next week, and I will talk to you again then.
Rethink the Way You Sell is a Pod About It production. It's mixed and edited by Doug Branson, with music by Blue Dot Sessions and Doug Branson. This podcast is masterminded by Jeff Bajorek.